There are moments in life when a decision must be made, one that may not feel rational, safe, or even fair. But when it's a decision made in obedience to God, something eternal shifts. This is the story of such a moment that changed everything. My name is Caleb Dawson, and this is how obedience to God, one quiet step after another, brought peace, healing, and unity to my broken family. If this video touches a chord in you or reminds you of how precious the love of family is, please take the time to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Growing up in a house full of people can still feel lonely. Ours was loud in volume but silent in heart. My father was a proud man, quick with a belt and quicker with his words. My mother was a shell of someone who once dreamed. She cooked, cleaned, and survived, but barely smiled. It was far from ideal, but to me, it was home. My two sisters and I learned early how to tiptoe around tension. No one talked about what was real. Pain lived in the walls. We performed normalcy at church, but even God seemed like a stranger we only visited on Sundays. We went through the motions, but what happened when we returned home was another story entirely. My sisters and I would joke about how fake our parents were, but neither of us would say it to anyone. When I turned 18, I had reached my limit of silence. I left that house without looking back. I told myself I was free, but freedom without peace is still bondage. For years, I floated through life numb. Relationships failed. Jobs came and went. I chased distractions, money, women, alcohol, but I couldn't outrun the aching silence I carried from my childhood. It was an ache that never went away, but I learned to endure it. Every day for 10 years, I told myself that I was just fine. Yes, I had my daily demons to battle, but I had become accustomed to the battle and had actually become quite good at pushing them away, at least until the next day. It wasn't until I was 28 that something shifted. I had gone to a small church in rural Mississippi while visiting a friend. I sat in the back, half listening, until the preacher said something that pierced my spirit like a knife. He was talking about how we deceive ourselves daily, refusing to do what we know is right, choosing only to do what is convenient or easy. He said, obedience is the doorway to healing. Partial obedience is still disobedience. He said it and moved on, but I didn't. That one sentence clung to me like a weight. It followed me back home. It echoed in my car, in my apartment, in my mind at night. I had obeyed nothing but pain for years. I had quietly asked God many times to tell me what I should do to ease that pain. Each time I would receive a nudge in my family's direction, but I hadn't listened to him because it was not what I wanted to hear. Needless to say, that daily battle continued. 3 weeks later, I couldn't sleep. It was like something or someone was speaking to my spirit. It kept instructing me to call my father. I wanted to resist, but I kept hearing the words, obedience is the doorway to healing. My father and I hadn't spoken in over 5 years. He didn't know where I lived. I didn't care where he was. The memories were too painful to invite back in, but the feeling wouldn't go away. So I prayed. It wasn't poetic. It wasn't impressive. It was a whisper in the dark. God, if this is you, I'll call him, but you'll have to help me do it right. It felt ridiculous, but I obeyed. The next morning, I found my father's number through a cousin. My hands shook as I dialed. He answered on the second ring. I expected tension, but he just said my name like he had been waiting, like he already knew. It was a feeling of connection I had not felt with anyone in a long time. We didn't talk long, but I held on to each word like it was food for my spirit. And it was. A week later, I drove to my hometown. I didn't go to judge or rehash the past. I just felt like God wanted me to see him, not for who he had been, but for who he was now. The journey was not long in miles, but it seemed as if it lasted forever. When I walked in, my father greeted me with a hug. He looked older, smaller. His voice had lost the bark I remembered. He walked with a cane and carried shame in his eyes. I stayed for dinner. We didn't talk about the past, but I noticed something. He didn't touch alcohol. He prayed over our meal, stumbling, but sincere. And when my mother walked by, he looked at her the way I had once hoped he would. I slept on the same bed I had as a boy, but this time I slept in peace. God didn't tell me to move back. He told me to stay connected. A phone call once a week, a visit once a month, then more often. It wasn't convenient. It wasn't always joyful, but it was obedience. With time, I saw something happen that no therapy, no lecture, no demand could have caused. My mother began to open up, not to me, but to God. She joined a Bible study and started writing prayers on sticky notes that she posted on the fridge. She smiled more. My older sister, once cold and withdrawn, called me out of the blue one night. She said, "I don't know what's going on with Dad, but it's like he's trying." I told her the truth. He's not just trying, he's obeying. It didn't come all at once. It rarely does. Healing is more like rain on dry soil. It was like watching a flower grow. At first, nothing seems to change. Then one day you see green sprouting through the soil. It started with apologies, not forced ones, but sincere ones. My father apologized to each of us, unprompted. He wept like a man finally free. He told us that 3 years ago, he almost died. Heart attack. While recovering, he had a nurse who read scripture to him and prayed for him. He said something shifted in him after that. That's when he started attending church again. That's when he began to seek God, not out of duty, but desperation. I remembered that was when I got the first nudge to call, but disobeyed. The healing was slow but steady. My family, once shattered, began to meet monthly for dinner, not out of obligation, out of desire. We laughed. We prayed before meals. We took photos. My sisters reconciled. The old hurt was gone. My mother started a community garden. My father volunteered at a recovery center. But none of it happened overnight. And none of it was because we tried harder. It was the slow result of obedience, mine, theirs, and God's unrelenting grace. I stopped trying to be the fixer. I just kept obeying, visiting, calling, praying, forgiving, over and over. God did the rest. 10 years later, my parents celebrated their 40th anniversary. My dad cried during the toast. My mom hugged him longer than I'd ever seen. It was as if they had found a new kind of love, one anchored in God's love. On one visit, I brought my wife and our 2 kids. We took a photo of 4 generations that day. My father holding my son, me holding peace. Not one person in that picture was perfect, but they were whole, and that's more powerful. Obedience doesn't always make sense. It rarely feels heroic. It's not dramatic. It's often quiet, humbling, and slow. But it's the language of faith. And faith, true faith, moves mountains we've lived under for too long. I used to think saving my family would take a miracle. But it only took one thing: obedience. Obedience to a God who sees beyond our pain, who repairs the broken, who rewrites the story. All it takes is faith to believe and faith to trust in the God who loves us unconditionally. Faith saved my family, and it started with one call. If there is a broken relationship you need to heal, trust God to lead you to restoration if you just obey His words. Leave the comment below, I trust in God, and subscribe to our channel. Also visit us at renewedmind369.com for more inspirational stories, books, journals, and planners. Be blessed.